I'd like to share the breastplate of St. Patrick with you today. This is the prayer St. Patrick prayed before his great contest with the Druids and the powers of darkness at Tara. Patrick was a missionary to the island of Ireland. He had been imprisoned there as a slave in his youth and returned to bring back the message of the gospel, the light of the gospel, to this island and people that he loved. His mission was gaining ground in Ireland, and therefore the High King summoned him to a council that he was calling at Tara, at which all the chieftains of Ireland and their druids would appear. Now, this was to be a great council, and the king issued a decree that no one was to light a fire in Ireland in the days leading up to the council, so that when all of Ireland united and lit a fire together, it would display his lordship over the island, and the great solemnity of the council. So among these chieftains, Patrick and his missionary followers were also summoned to make their act of submission to the king. And on the night before the council at Tara, Patrick and his men were camped out across the valley in view of the king. And it happened that it was March 25th, which is the Feast of the Incarnation, and also happened to be that year the night before Easter, Holy Saturday, the Easter Vigil. And Patrick called to his right-hand man, young man, and said, "Let's gather together some wood so that we can light the Easter fire." And they, despite some trepidation about the nearness of the king, they lit a towering fire in the night, blessed it, hallowed it, and celebrated Christ's victory over death on the night before Easter. The druids of the king across the valley saw this going on, and they banded together to attack this fire and surrounded it with spells, incantations, curses, and behind them a great darkness rose across the sky, but nothing could put out the light. Even the chief druid was lifted into the air by demonic powers, but Patrick's prayer of faith brought him to the ground. And so on the next day, when Patrick and his men appeared before the king to tell them what their mission in Ireland was and to ask permission to preach the gospel in the country, the king basically replaced the druids with Patrick and recognized that the true fire, the true light of the world, was not coming from him, but was coming with Patrick to Ireland. So this is the breastplate of St. Patrick. At Tara today, in this awful hour, I call on the Holy Trinity. Glory to him that reigneth in power, the God of the elements, Father and Son, and Paraclete Spirit, which three are the one, the ever-existing divinity. I bind this day to me forever, by power of faith, Christ's incarnation, his baptism in the Jordan River, his death on cross for my salvation, his bursting from the spiced tomb, his riding up the heavenly way, his coming at the day of doom, I bind unto myself today. I bind unto myself the power of the great love of cherubim, the sweet well done in judgment hour, the service of the seraphim, confessor's faith, apostles' word, the patriarchs' prayers, the prophets' scrolls, all good deeds done unto the Lord, the purity of virgin souls. At Tara today, in this fateful hour, I place all heaven with its power, and the sun with its brightness, and the snow with its whiteness, and fire with all the strength it hath, and lightning with its rapid wrath, and the winds with their swiftness along their path, and the sea with its deepness, and the rocks with their steepness, and the earth with its starkness. All these I place, by God's almighty help and grace, between myself and the powers of darkness, at Tara today. May God be my stay. I invoke all these virtues against every hostile, merciless power which may assail my body and soul, against the incantations of false prophets, against the black laws of heathenism, against the false laws of heresy, against the deceits of idolatry, against the spells of women and smiths and druids, against every knowledge that binds the soul of man. Christ, protect me today, against every poison, against burning, against drowning, against death wound, that I may receive abundant reward. I bind unto myself today the power of God to hold and lead, his eye to watch, his might to stay, his ear to hearken to my need, the wisdom of my God to teach, his hand to guide, his shield to ward, the word of God to give me speech, his heavenly host to be my guard. Christ be with me, Christ within me, Christ behind me, Christ before me, Christ beside me, Christ to win me, Christ to comfort and restore me, Christ beneath me, Christ above me, Christ in quiet, Christ in danger, Christ in hearts of all that love me, Christ in mouth of friend and stranger. I bind unto myself today the strong name of the Trinity, by invocation of the same, the three in one, and one in three, of whom all nature hath creation, eternal Father, Spirit, Word. Praise to the Lord of my salvation. Salvation is of Christ the Lord. Happy St. Patrick's Day.